My name's Becki Walters, and I have been an athlete my whole life. When I was 16, I developed bone cancer, and so I lost most of my left leg, but thankfully it didn't kill me. And right after my surgery, because I was healthy, it wasn't like I had an accident and had a lot of other issues, I found that getting back up and being active was the best thing to make me feel whole again. So like I went back to school just like a week after my surgery. I was on crutches. I didn't have my artificial leg for a few months, actually, back in the old days. And I just decided that, being active and being back out with my friends and my peers. I had been on the track team, and I used to tell, this is terrible. Okay, so 1978, JAWS was a big thing. Well, I had gone to Florida for spring break and got my leg cut off the day I got back. And so it was kind of a good story to be like, yeah, I got a shark attack, But anyway, it was boring cancer, But so I found that, humor helps. But I also found that getting back out and being with my peers, like I said, made me feel like I was whole. I wasn't, like off to the sidelines. And so I actually ended up working a track meet that I would have been competing at within a few weeks of my amputation, So I'm out there, I'm timing, I'm running results up and down the stands on my crutches. And it was just like it kind of put everybody else at ease too, because they're like, okay, she's still the same. She just looks a little weird, And so that made me realize I wanted to help other people make that adjustment, go from, either an accident or an illness, and get back out there and feel like they were alive and they were part of.
Right. What was the biggest challenge that you have had since losing your leg up until now?
Aging. No, I guess aging is kind of part of it, just because you do use your other limbs a lot more heavily, and so you're constantly adapting. You're constantly going, okay, I can't run. I had run on my crutches for years, and now I'm like, can't really do that anymore. So I'm like, I probably need to get a wheelchair running thing so I can still get out there and do that. So it's just, I guess that's one thing. So you're constantly having to adjust and adapt and think outside of the box, I guess. So,
right.
Yeah.
And so how was that transition from going to having just two legs to getting it cut off and then only having one leg and then getting a prosthetic leg put on? How was that transition?
Well, I think, again, because this is back in the 70s and the bionic woman was a thing, and the $6 million man, where they were like, we can make it better. I had this false assumption that my artificial leg was going to make me be able to do everything I did before. And I was like, when I got it, it was like the reality was this is like nothing.
Right.
So, that was kind of like, I still to this day, I don't wear my leg for sports because I have, and everybody's like, why don't you get one of those really cool spring legs? I'm like, well, I don't have enough of my leg left, my stump. They don't call it that anymore. That's not PC. It's a residual limb. So, trying to keep up with the changing terms is really interesting too. So yeah, just realizing that, really I'm better off just with the three natural limbs, and I wear my leg for doing like boring stuff like walking and, mowing the lawn and, grocery shopping and stuff like that. But vacuuming is really hard to do hopping.
Yes, I would believe that. Was there ever a time where you felt hopeless in this endeavor?
Not really, because I'm very blessed. I believe in God, and I always felt like He allowed this, not as a punishment, but so I guess I was like, this is what my life's supposed to be. And I've always also had the perspective that I could be dead, I mean, I had cancer, and I meet people and they go, wow, you had cancer as a teenager. I didn't never know, teenagers got bone cancer. I'm like, well, you don't usually meet them because most of them don't survive into adulthood. So just the fact that I've lived 42 years since losing my leg, and I've had 5 kids, and I've been healthy, and so I think if you look at what you have instead of what you don't have, it gives you a lot better perspective, because I work with people who have both of their legs gone, or who are paralyzed, or they've had a head injury, so half their body doesn't work. So it doesn't really leave you much room to feel like, oh, poor me. I'm very blessed.
And once you start looking at it, just like you name all those people, you start to see that I could turn this tragedy into something that can help people infinitely, far more than I'll ever even be able to comprehend.
Well, and it helps because, even if I'm not as injured as they might be, they do know that I kind of have a little bit of understanding. There's a guy that I'm not, it's gotten canceled this year, but there's a ski event that happens every year in Breckenridge, and they bring people that a lot of soldiers in from, like Walter Reed, who are just recovering, and they've got pieces and parts blown off. And there's this one guy I met that both legs were gone, his arm was gone, and he had one arm, and he's wheeling around his wheelchair, and they give you soup at lunch. Okay, so here's this guy, and he's got this big beard. Okay, so you got a beard, maybe you understand. So he's trying to eat soup with one hand, balancing on his lap, and so I'm like, okay, I hope you don't, you're like the age of my kids. I don't want to offend you, but I would love to help you eat your soup, and even though I don't have as many parts missing, he understands it. I get it, that there's things you can't do that are really frustrating, and it's embarrassing to be like, can you wipe my soup off my beard, So it does give you a little bit more of, people think you've got a little more empathy to be like, you kind of know what it feels like. Right.
So let's get into kind of what you do with this B.A.S.E thing. Could you define what B.A.S E is and just give me a description of that?
Well, B.A.S E stands for Boise Adaptive Snowsport Education. That's why we just call it B.A.S E, because it's a long name.
It's a long mouthful.
But it's very descriptive. For years, we had been called Recreation Unlimited. There has been a program at Bogus Basin since 1978. It was started by a couple of guys in the ski school, and they were like, there were starting to be programs for veterans coming back from Vietnam who primarily had lost lower limbs. So they were like, we should do this here. So it's been up there for a number of years. I started working with them in the late 90s when I moved to town. So we changed the name a couple years ago. When I worked my way up to being the president, I said, this name is great. And I think when they first chose that name, they were hoping to do several different sports. But over the last 40 years, all we've done is snow sports. And so I'm like, we need to have a name that better describes us, because when people searched us on the web, there were other people with the same name around the country. So it was not a great name. And it wasn't it just didn't describe what we did. So we rebranded a couple years ago and made it more descriptive. And that's all we do: snow and snowboard and ski.
And so so that entails people that have lost limbs, and you allow them to snowboard and ski, or you help them.
Absolutely.
Snowboard
and it's really people with any kind of special needs. So it's everything from kids with, autism to, we got some real little bitty kids this year, like 4-year-olds. That was really sweet.
Wow.
And, one had to have heart surgery. And, and he was just really little and just needed extra help. Or visually impaired people, veterans. So we take anybody who it would be hard for them to take a group lesson with a bunch of other people, because all of our lessons are private. So in fact, most of our lessons are 2 instructors to 1 student, so that we are super hands-on. So it's pretty amazing, because there's parents who they would never think their kid could ski because they have so many disabilities. They maybe have hemiparesis, which half their body doesn't work, is paralyzed. They're nonverbal, and they're autistic, and they're blind. And they're like, there's no way and surprisingly enough, it's not like they're like going to go down the Black Diamonds, but we get them out of their usual environment. Like somebody like that, they're at home a lot, and we get them up in the mountains in the cold weather,
fresh air,
beautiful, just around a bunch of people, so it's not just the skiing or the snowboarding. It's just also a whole different social, emotional, physical experience.
So how amazing is it not only to see the faces of the people that you help, but also the parents and the caregivers that thought this would never be possible?
Yeah, it's huge. And a lot of times for the family, because they've got somebody with a special need, the family hasn't been able to get out and enjoy the mountains.
Right,
and so what
right.
we see, there's one family, they've got 2 boys that are both autistic. And they started bringing them up. And for the first couple of years, just the boys would ski. But the last couple of years, the parents are now taking lessons because
cool.
their boys are getting good enough that they're like, hey, we can maybe do this as a family. So, it's like there was another student this year. He had, I got to be careful. I don't want to give away too many details.
Right.
But he was one of our little bitty guys. And when he first started, he could barely stand up just because he had such weakness in his legs. And we had 2 instructors beside him, physically holding him up, getting him, and he would tire really quickly. I mean, it's a 2-hour lesson, but some of our students can't make it for 2 hours.
Right.
So he'd maybe only be out a half an hour and go in, get some cocoa, and go back out for another half an hour. By the end of the season, and he had six lessons, by the end of the season, he was standing up on his own, and his mom, who's in the healthcare community, she was just amazed. She's like, we never thought he could make this kind of progress because, he'd been doing PT and kind of the traditional therapies, but, and he's out there with his brother, and they're like, yeah, so it's just,
wow.
Yeah, it's really cool for the whole family to experience that. And another thing we do is take kids. Bogus is great about bringing up students, they'll have a junior high bring all their 7th graders up to ski some night. And they do a special deal where they give them a lesson, their equipment, and a pass to ski. Mm-hmm. Well, kids with special needs that are in those classes had traditionally kind of been left out. And when we know that there's a group coming up, we'll make sure we have some of our instructors available to work with the students. And that's pretty cool, too, to have that student, maybe somebody's got Down syndrome. And, they're maybe a little bit sidelined at school, and have their peers see them out there, skiing or snowboarding and doing the same thing that they're doing. It gives that person a little more, I don't want to say cred, but just it raises their status a little bit that, mm-hmm. hey, they can do the same thing I can do. And
right.
So that's pretty fun, too.
It's really amazing because people go to work all week and then they come home and they will lay in bed and sleep all weekend because they're so tired, and that kind of turns into a pattern. I can't imagine having a severe disability or losing a limb and then needing to find the motivation to get up and go outside.
Yeah.
And you seemed like right off the bat you were at the track meet, you were doing all this stuff. How do you do that? How do you find that motivation? And have you seen that work? Do you see people that you've helped go outside of your lessons and do that?
Absolutely. We have a number of our students that have become instructors. I should say all of our instructors are volunteers. Everybody in our program is a volunteer. So we have over 80 instructors, and they volunteer all their time. The board volunteers all their time. And so it's been great because we have 2 of our students that took lessons from us for years, and they kind of progressed as far as they were able to. So we've turned them into instructors. They both have intellectual challenges. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we send them out alone with a student, but they are, they go with us on the lesson.
Right?
Yeah. And that makes, this last year we had one guy, he had the program coat, so he's got the instructor coat. Yep. And his mom is like, he feels so proud that he's doing this. And he was like the biggest cheerleader. He's out there clapping, yeah. So, and then we've got another couple people that, we had a snowboarder. She's not with us anymore, but we had a snowboarder who had a head injury. So she had hemiparesis and some challenges. And she got good enough to where she was one of our instructors. And then we've got a gentleman who's got a spinal cord injury. So he uses a monoski. So it's a sit-down ski with a single ski under it. And he's awesome. If you ever go online and watch any of our videos, he's like one of our stars.
Cool.
So he's one of our instructors now, and he's progressed up to where he's got his professional ski instructor
right.
Certification, and he's He's great.
And so you have some special equipment.
Oh,
a mono ski.
Yes. We've got a bunch of. That's the one great thing. B.A.S.E is wonderful. B.A.S.E is a nonprofit, and so they are like hand in glove with us. They are very generous to our instructors and students. They give us season passes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they help out with the regular equipment. Like if somebody doesn't have a ski or snowboards, they will help out with the, regular equipment. And then we have all the adaptive equipment. So let's say you've got somebody with some weakness on one side of their body. They might use skis, and we'll then put outriggers that, the held outriggers on the side. So we sometimes have to connect the ski tips or the skis at the boots to keep them, if they have one leg weaker, to keep the skis parallel or semi-parallel. So we have all the specialized equipment, and so we've got several mono skis. Also, we have bi-skis. That's with 2 skis, and sometimes they have outriggers on the side too. And with those, we have instructors behind them tethering them.
Oh, okay.
So that they're not just careening down the mountain.
Right.
And with our sit-down students, we have, most of those lessons have 4 instructors, because you've got to lift them on the chairlift. And we also try to have a kind of a perimeter skiing around them, because sometimes the people get a little too curious and they want to be like, oh, what's that? And they get a little too close and can get between the tether line and the students. So we sort of have our wingmen, we call them, that are just kind of out there okay, don't get too close. So
the outriggers, is that it sounds like almost like a walker that you have?
Well, we have those. Those
hill.
are called sliders, which is like a walker with skis on it, and it's adjustable, and we put tethers on that too. For people, those are really only work on students that are on the beginning slopes, because they don't articulate, so you can't get on anything with too much pitch.
Right.
Outriggers are like forearm crutches that are, that's what they originally used, was just forearm crutches, and they cut off little ski tips and put it on the bottom.
Okay.
Now they actually make, and they're a lot better.
Way nicer, right?
Yeah, and that's what I use. I use 2 outriggers and 1 ski, because I don't wear my leg. And so the outriggers just give a little more balance. Like for me, what my type of skiing is called is 3-track, because I make 3 tracks. And then there's 4 tracks. So like somebody with, let's say, MS, they still have some mobility and they don't want to be sit down skiing yet. They might wear 2 skis and then have the outriggers just for a little more support. For me, it's it helps me change. I don't know if you're a skier or snowboarder. You're probably a snowboarder.
I have snowboarded one time. Okay. I'm not super into it.
I'm making assumptions.
No, that's
fine.
Terrible.
It's the whole, it's the whole Oregon vibe you got.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Anyway, for me, it helps me change direction, because usually when you're skiing, you change the pressure on one ski or the other to turn. So for me, it's like if I pressure my right outrigger, it'll help me turn to the left.
Right.
So,
right. Okay.
Yeah. Plus, it's
That's
great
amazing.
when you take your ski off and you're going to go in the lodge, because they flip up, and then I can walk around on them like crutches, so I'm not hopping.
Right. Cool. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is so cool that there are opportunities for people to be doing that. What is one of the toughest experiences you've had with doing this?
I think when my own limitation is a problem when I'm teaching a lesson. Okay, so if I'm on a lesson, and maybe I am by myself, because I've got more training than a lot of the other instructors, so there's times where we have more students than somebody showed up today, they weren't scheduled, and so there's times where you are alone with the student, and you get in a situation where they've fallen and they've got their equipment, what they call a yard sale. Okay, they got their equipment everywhere. They got a pole up there. They've got, both skis off. And I'm there, on my outriggers. And I'm trying to help them retrieve everything and help them stand physically. I'm trying to help them stand up. And I'm,
Right.
So there's times where I'm like, dang it, this really sucks, because I'm not as strong as maybe another instructor would have been able to be. And so my limitations, can affect how quickly we get that going again.
Right.
And I also, there's times people look at me like, oh, she's my instructor. Oh, great. Because I can't demonstrate a wedge turn. right? Because
Right.
I don't wedge turn. So there's times like that where it's maybe a disadvantage. I tried, like, for years, since I have 5 kids, I'd be like, come go skiing with mom, and I would have my kids ski in front of my student, especially with students that have intellectual disabilities. It really helps for them to visually see somebody going, okay, this is a wedge turn. Okay,
Right.
now we're going to do, a wedge change up, and, be able to do all of the stuff. And so I would have my kids be the example out
Right.
in front, and I'd be back kind of talking.
Right. That's amazing. Wow.
So usually,
Right.
like I said, you can find ways to adapt and make it work.
So there are these situations that you found yourself in, and I'm sure all through life, that your disability you start to see that it's limiting you in this specific situation. What is your thought process and your mind doing when you start to become aware of that in those specific situations?
I think I kind of double down sometimes. I'm like, I'm going to just try harder, which, or I'm going to problem solve with, I'm going to try to figure this out. I think it's just trying to not, like, spiral down, like, and get angry. Because there's times where you're like, okay, so my youngest 2 kids are twins, and I wouldn't be able to wear my leg because of going through the pregnancy. I was without my leg for a while. So I'm trying to get 2 infants, into the grocery store, and I'm on crutches. And maybe this happened one time. I pulled up, and I'm parking in a handicap spot, and I got my little placard. But if somebody looks in at me in the car, I don't maybe look like I fit what they think somebody with a disability would look like. So, and they'll be like, like shaking their finger at me, and I'm like, wait, I'm just trying to get my twins out of the car and get into the grocery store on my crutches. So there's times where you can get a little bit, like, angry, and but I try to just go, look, you know what, they don't know, they're trying to do their best. And most people in the world, counter to maybe what you see on the media, are really good people, and they're probably shaking their finger because they maybe have a grandparent that they think should be parking there,
Right.
and I didn't fit that.
Yeah, they have a kind of a
stereotype,
stereotype of what they think someone like that should look
right.
like.
And so if you have the mindset that, most people are really good people, and they are trying to be good citizens in the community, and they're not trying to be jerks, if you take that perspective, it kind of helps you not be like, get angry.
So has that been your experience in life, is that, that just like you said, the media seemingly portrays that 99% of people behave this way, but it seems like the stereotype for the 99% of people is that they're all pretty understanding,
Yeah.
and they're very kind. That's
And
kind of
most
what I'm
people,
getting at.
like the people that volunteer with our program, they give so much time, and they're willing to come up and work extra days. Like when they know that, we had a guy contact us. He was in town doing some work, I think, for Micron or one of the high-tech people, and he was a wheelchair user, and he was a monoskier, and he was come to town, and from Germany, and he's like, I'd really like to go monoskiing while I'm in town. And sorry, the cat.
You're totally fine.
Cat's bumping. And we had a couple of our instructors, take time off work, come up, because he can only go up on a weekday. We usually work weekends. And, facilitate that for him. So, people go above and beyond all the time. Our instructors do. And really most people do, because it makes
Right.
them, we tell people we get paid in smiles, because many of our instructors have been with us for 10, 20, 30 years, because they just get addicted to how great it makes them feel.
Right, right.
A couple of years ago, we had a student who was in high school, and she had a neurological problem where she was losing functioning, and so she had gone in a matter of years from being completely able-bodied to a wheelchair user, to where they were afraid she wasn't even going to be able to have trunk control enough to even sit up in a bi-ski or monoski. And when our instructors found out that this was potentially her last season, they went up there for 3 or 4 weeks till the mountain closed after our regular lessons ended, and took because they were like, oh, we want to do this for her, because she may not be able to do it next year. So
So, kind of going the opposite way of the toughest experience, what is one of or a couple of the most amazing, most beautiful experiences that you've been given from this lifestyle?
That's hard to say. Just so many, being able to take somebody who thinks that they would never be able to be active again. And what I find is once they're like, okay, now I can ski, then they go, well, what else can I do?
Right.
And and this, I'd have to give a plug for another nonprofit in town here. It's it's called Challenged Athlete Foundation, and they were started in San Diego over 25 years ago, and they actually have just expanded to Idaho.
Oh, wow.
And they've partnered up with the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation. So they are giving grants to anybody who's an Idaho resident to buy specialized equipment. So to buy their own monoski, to buy their own wheelchair basketball wheelchair, or their own cycle bike, or so a lot of times we'll have our students go, oh, well, I'm going to get involved. Like Challenged Athlete Foundation has a cycling club. So they're like, I'm going to get involved in that. And so they get their own bike, and they're, twice a month they go out and they ride with a group of people. And they're not all, the great thing about Challenged Athletes, sorry to go off the trail
you're fine,
here,
go for it,
is that it's completely immersed. Okay, so our cycling group has people, able-bodied people and disabled people. It's not like, oh, this is just a special little group over here. It's for the community, and it's not like the hardcore cycling thing that you see zipping by and they're doing 100 miles.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, we're going to go on a 15-mile ride, and some people may only ride 4 miles and turn around, but we're doing like an out and back, so we'll see everybody along the way. So it's pretty cool. So that's what's great, is you see people kind of think, wow, I can do more than just this, and they expand their.
So you have been a door opener for this entire time. You open a door and people say, wow, I can do this. I never thought that this door would be open and I could stand up and ski down this hill. And that you put that idea in their life, and then they go around and they see the whole world that, oh, look at this, what I can do now. I can do this, I can do this. That's probably the most profound thing anyone can do for anybody, is open those doors for people. So that's really amazing.
Thank you.
So how long do you want to do this?
Well, it's kind of my body. It's telling me, like, we'll see. I mean, I'm almost 60, so I would love to keep doing it as long as I can. Probably when I can't continue to ski myself, hopefully I'll be involved on the administrative side, getting it out there and helping out on the board and that kind of thing. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And so have you worked for any other nonprofits in your life other than B.A.S.E?
Yeah. Before I moved here, I worked with some other skiing nonprofits. I've been teaching adaptive skiing since 1986 was when I first got certified. But I work for, I might, if the COVID ever goes away, there's another one in town called Aqua Ability, and I teach adaptive swim lessons. And so that's pretty cool.
And so is that just getting people in a pool and try to get them to move around?
Well, it depends on what their challenges are. For some, it's just getting them in the pool and letting them stretch out, getting range of motion. For people that are always in a wheelchair, they get very tight. And so just being able to get that fluid motion, and they're weightless, pretty much weightless in the water. And giving them, again, being in a different environment, seeing something different, feeling something different on their body.
Talking to new people.
Yeah. Absolutely. But, then again, we have some of our students go on, and they're able to then join like their high school swim team. Because if you're a female, because of Title IX, if you go to a swim team as a girl, they have to let you be on the swim team. It's not like they, like the boys, it's a little more, like they can only take so many. But with the girls, they take all comers. So there was a student that had Down syndrome and got good enough at swimming all the 4 strokes that person was able to go and compete with their regular high school swim team. And that was like so cool for her.
That's
yeah.
I have seen videos where someone with a disability is put in at the end of a basketball game and they make a 3-pointer.
Yeah.
And you see their face.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't need to go out and lead a team to a state championship. They just wanted to be involved. And
they want to be part of it.
And that's pretty much how everyone should look at it.
Yeah.
Because the fact that you could get someone with Down syndrome on a swimming team and they could go out and compete and be with everybody, because it's not just about swimming. You're riding the bus there. You're interacting with everyone. You get to have lunch with everyone. There's a whole experience that goes into it. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Everything, you know? Wow.
You're in the yearbook with the team.
Right.
Yeah. And that's, you're right. We want to be part of our community. And I think the more opportunities we can have for people and be like, it's not about winning or losing. It's about being here together. Yeah.
So how long did you say you've had your prosthetic leg?
1978.
1978.
So
wow.
I know I'm old.
So that's just amazing that you...
Not the same one, thankfully.
Right.
Because my first leg was actually had wooden part components.
Really?
So things have gotten a lot better over the
So
years.
have you felt, in a comfort sense, has it gotten comfortable as technology has advanced through the years?
To a point, but there's still that artificial to body connection. I still get sores. I still, it's not like... it's not like the bionic woman or any of that kind of stuff. But no, the technology has definitely gotten a lot better. So how can people get involved?
Yes.
We are always looking for volunteers. And if you go to BASEidaho.org is our website, you can contact us and be a skiing or snowboard volunteer with us. We're always looking for students. And as our valley grows, we've gotten really busy, which is super fun because we've just gotten a whole new group of people. In fact, this year, I think we had probably 25% of our students were brand new first year to us students.
Wow.
So partly that's getting our name out there a little bit more, and then also partly just the growth in the valley. So, and you don't have to be an expert skier or snowboarder. In fact, we have Citibank has a big business here in town, and we have we've partnered with them, and they have some of their employees come up, and some of them didn't even ski, but because some of our students are just learning, we spend a lot of time on the flats, and any extra set of hands is great, and so we can also use help on things that like social media and web design, because there's people doing those jobs that maybe that's not the thing that they're best at. And some of our instructors are boomers. Mm-hmm. I'll just say it. I got kids, okay, boomer, I hear that a lot. My son told me I got to stop using punctuation in my text, because when I write it with period, that's seen as being aggressive.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'm like, dang it, I'm just trying to be proper English. Yep. Anyway. So I am not great at social media. And so, younger people that want to do that for us and they don't have any interest in skiing or snowboarding. So there's other places people could help.
We'll put the website right up here on it and everything. So I have two more questions to wrap this in. You are very vibrant. You are energetic. You seem very happy. And there are a lot of people that have two legs that aren't as happy. What have you done over your lifespan after this tragedy? And you don't even really make it sound like it's been a tragedy.
Event.
Yeah, this event.
Yeah.
How have you maintained this spirit?
I think looking at the possibilities and looking at what you can still do, and looking that, there are people that are sort of still stuck that need to get unstuck and need to be encouraged. And I coach triathlon. That's something else. I guess I work for the Y. That's another nonprofit. But there's people who will go out and try triathlon, and maybe they are very out of shape. They've let themselves go. Maybe they've been really depressed and gone through some really hard things, but they've decided, I'm going to do this. And so they're trying their first triathlon. Maybe they're doing, the Y has these very short ones, the Why Not Try. And so they're swimming, and they've got to swim 200 yards. Well, to some people, that's a warm-up, okay?
Right.
And I'll sit there and time this person, and it takes them 25 minutes to swim 200 yards because they're nervous and they're panicked and they're feeling like, what am I doing? And, you know, I'll sit there with my stopwatch, and every time they come, I'm like, hey, you're doing great. You're out here. Look, you haven't stopped. You know, and I think we all need somebody that's going to say, hey, look, don't compare yourself to Michael Phelps.
Right.
Look at that, what you're doing today, at what maybe you were doing a few weeks ago, sitting on the couch and drinking too much and eating too much or whatever, you know, and you're out here, you're taking care of yourself, and you're trying to, you know, change and make the rest of your life maybe different than where you've been. And I think that makes me feel so good because, you know, and to see, there's a few people that I'll see, you know, okay, this is their first triathlon, and then you'll see them, they'll try another one, and then after a few years, they're getting better and better and faster, and you're like, look at you didn't stop, you know, you're never going to be, you know, an Ironman, but who wants to do that anyway? Who cares, it's a lot of training.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that do Ironman, and it is a lot of training. Your family's like, where have you been?
Right,
So, anyway, so yeah, I guess not looking at yourself, but looking at, you know, there's other people that need encouragement, and there's always somebody who you can say, come on.
Well, and that's a cycle that society has fallen into, is that you have a dream, you want to go swim, and then you see a video of Michael Phelps, and then you're like, oh, there's no way.
Yeah, and find somebody to do it with you. That's super important. Like, because the situation in the pools has been a little weird with COVID, and it's nice out. I've been swimming at the ponds, out at Quinn's Pond, and I have a friend that I swim with 2 or 3 times a week, and, you know, the mornings when I get up and I think, I don't feel like going today. It's kind of cold, you know. I know that she's going to be there, and so I don't want to let her down. She's going to let me down. So finding somebody to do it with you is another good thing.
It kind of breaks that cycle of, instead of just thinking, oh, it's a little cold, I'll just get back in bed. And there's that person outside of you that is keeping you grounded. That's like, keep going. Yeah. We can do this. Let's go swim. Let's keep going.
Yeah, we were both doing that the other day. We were like, oh, it's a lot colder. We should have brought our wetsuits, you know. And we're like, no, let's do it. So we're out there in the middle of the pond. We're like, look at this. It's a gorgeous day, you know, and we did it, and, you know.
For my last question, I've been trying to ask every single person that I go out to events and interview, or that I sit down and interview with, what is one thing in this world that gives you hope?
Other people. Yeah, absolutely. Other people, and seeing that there are way more good people than negative people out there. And the more that the good people are out there doing their thing, it makes everybody's day better.
It seems like negative people like to sit around and voice a lot of opinion, and the majority of people are out trying to accomplish things. They don't have time to talk about.
They're not
all
on
the
their
terrible
phones.
Things. Right, exactly.
On social media, they're out doing stuff and living life, and, you know, making things better.
And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.